Autumn.
We have Autumn's name.
Usually hangs out.
Morning.
Not
turning
turning
around.
around.
What's going on with the owl? You guys look really weird.
Yeah, I don't know. What I do know, hold on,
Oh, the.
my background is blurred.
There you go. Much
There you
better.
go, yeah.
Thank goodness for you.
Rick is just focus,
Yeah.
pretty scary.
Instead of flashing.
Thank you,
back and
Ian
forth.
Town. And with that, we'll commence with the meeting on July 24th. We did not have a June meeting. Therefore, we were sent the minutes from the May meeting. And I would put on the floor and offer to enter those into the record. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Deb and a second.
Okay.
We have a second. Since we're all here, just
Yeah,
a
all in
hand wave,
favor.
right?
Dutch enthusiasm.
All in favor, raise your hand.
Thanks,
It
y'all.
looks unanimous. Thank you all. Jamie sent the agenda for the meeting. Is there anything that the members would like to bring up during the course of the meeting or add it to the agenda under new business?
Is the solar farm situation on?
The
Yeah,
EECGB, that's the EEG.
yeah, so that was the
Yes, there it
EEC.
is. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
So
I only
yeah,
have a very brief update about that, but yes,
That's fine. I just wanted to know.
yes.
And I didn't know to call it the EECBG.
yeah, it's
What a letter.
the acronyms of the federal government. Well, the state has it too. So do we. All right, seeing that there's no changes to the agenda, we can get started. Nobody, unless Autumn, you want to make a public comment? Is that why you're here? Or are you here for your technical support and?
I don't know. I'm just here for moral support and questions.
All right.
She was here to tell us we were blurry.
I'm gonna check out now. You were blurry and I'm good. I'm done.
Her work here is done.
This screen is very strange today. What's going on, Jamie?
It doesn't seem to be moving because
I
he's
see,
talking and it's not
Yeah, I
focused
don't know
on
why
him.
the owl is, I don't know what's up with the owl. I don't know
but
why.
why
Oh,
do
there
we
it
just
goes.
see these people's names and we don't see anything?
Because their cameras are off.
We can look at Emerson.
Emerson's right there.
Usually you put up the agenda or something. we can do.
He's gonna do that.
Yeah. All right, we'll give Jamie a minute to put the agenda up on the screen before we go further with any business.
I'm just confused.
All right, seeing that there's no public, I'm closing public comment. And now we'll
There's
move,
enough committee comments to suffice.
Yes, there are.
I'll move on to old business, and I guess this one I'll just, oh, yeah, I briefed you, but I'll brief everybody. I had a joint planning board, town council meeting 3 weeks ago or so about a hotel in Cabela's, and got a chance to talk to John briefly in between his regular town council meeting, indicating that we were interested in engaging in with them at a subsequent finance meeting to discuss our ability to get the sustainability fund into the 2026 budget. So I told him I would follow up with an email, and I have yet to follow up with that email, but I will. So he understands that we're invested in getting this into.
Does he need anything else from us, or does our memo from a year ago suffice?
Well, I don't know as if he just wants us to, because he's got a new committee member. Right, isn't a new counselor on finance?
Well, we're gonna have an election, and then we're gonna have another new council.
I know.
Yeah,
My recommendation is and I leaned on John, John will have no problem with me saying
Saying
this.
that.
I leaned on John, on the phone the other day, and also I brought it up at our last council meeting just to get an update from the finance committee, because I knew that, Rick had also talked to John. So I just keep trying to put it out in the public and
Thank you.
make sure that John knows. My recommendation to John is that we get this on the agenda before the committees all change again, because it's just so hard to start over every single time. And John has the institutional knowledge now, so I think he should
So if we could shoot for like a September meeting and get it just so that can put it on their agenda, talk about it, and then it becomes entered into the record so that when they go back to the budget season, it's already embedded in there.
Right.
So I think it'll work out.
I hope so.
We'll get it. That's the last thing we'll do, right? Yeah. We started with that 12 years ago. All right, that's the update on the first item of old business. Second one is on the EECGB update. Jamie?
Yeah, so that is the federal funding that, the town of Scarborough basically is directly getting from the Department of, Energy. We basically just needed to submit a concept to them for how we were going to spend the $75,000 that is coming to the town. And so that was, the proposal to start developing a municipal solar array. I received word a couple weeks ago that our proposal was approved. But they're just working out kind of logistics on how it's going to work. So I'm told fall, I will probably receive some more information about how that will work. So we applied for technical assistance. So basically they're going to assign a contractor to us to work with us through that process, and then they will get paid directly through the Department of Energy. So that's how that process will work. Like I said, they're still working out on their end, what they need to do to make that happen. So I'll keep you in the loop as I learn more, but at this point, I'm told it won't be before fall.
What is the total value of this solar farm?
We haven't even started with that yet.
This is the planning grant. Because why rush these things?
No, I was just wondering how far 75,000 would travel.
It should be enough to get us through planning and probably start permitting. But we'll see.
How much does it cost to build a solar?
It
Generally.
varies depending on site work and connections and how long it takes us to be in the queue with CMP and things like that.
Size.
So it can vary.
Size.
Size, exactly.
Size.
Yeah.
What's the universe of where the contractors are assigned from?
So the Department of Energy was accepting basically applications and qualifications packages from all over the nation. And so, and I think they're still working through that process. I know we had referred revision over to them as something that they may be interested in exploring. I would expect it would be from New England, if it's not directly from Maine.
It would be good if we had somebody that already did that solar array here in Scarborough that already knows.
Yeah.
Some
I
of
don't know what local contractors, if any, or solar developers have kind of applied to be part of the.
I'm sure there's a lot in Massachusetts that have
Yeah,
made their qualifications known.
Yep.
To DOE.
Maine's catching up, but Massachusetts is quite a bit ahead of where we are in terms of
Well,
solar.
we're still working 2 years on an application from the IRA fund, so when you're dealing with the federal government and to get 75,000. Take about 8 months.
Yeah, and that's
Get
why, so they gave
16
me,
million, it takes 2 years.
they gave the option to do like a traditional grant or to do a voucher program, which we opted to go with the voucher route because it's less administrative burden. When you're talking about administering.
And that way the money doesn't, it just comes in and goes out
Right,
and you don't have to have invoices and stuff like that.
yeah, and we don't have to
back it all
deal with the accounting and all of
Right.
that. That's all done through the kind of the provider and DOE. So especially when it's a small grant like $75,000, the amount of administrative and bookkeeping that we would have to do for a federal grant is not worth $75,000. So.
That's so sad.
It's just a formula based.
Yeah, I understand that. I've had research grants, so.
All right. Well, next, I guess we're gonna turn it over to Emerson for a coastal meetup discussion. I think that happened, right? And
It has not
it has
happened.
not happened.
Presentation for you guys. We'll move us, perhaps. Okay,
This is your formal notice that the coastal meetup in Scarborough will be happening on August 22nd at 2 p.m. This is supposed to align with a high tide of over 10 p.m. And for 10, good God, it's early. 10 feet, and we will be meeting at the Eastern Trail Pine Point parking lot. And I also just wanted to give some context as to what the coastal meetup is, what project it's a part of. So this is a project run by GMRI, which invites community members in communities all over pretty much Maine in its entirety. Actually, I think they have to collect and post data in the form of a photo of places that are at risk for flooding or erosion or anything like that.
Where is the meetup at?
The Eastern Trail Pine Point parking lot. So anyone can participate. It's meant to be a pretty casual sort of collecting process. All you do is take a photo of either, I went on and logged on to the Scarborough site last night, and people, when there's no high tides, so either if they're just like out for a walk and are passing by one of the reporting sites, or if they see, you know, some other sort of abnormality, but especially they like data when it is flooded, or there are high tides. Yeah, and they invite people to participate whenever possible, and your data just gets uploaded to a site which is publicly available to view, so you can go look at other people's photos that they've posted. And the coastal meetup in general is, the event is for kind of the introduction of the project and showing people what you have to do and the procedure and getting people signed up, and just sort of having an event where people who are interested in that sort of no matter can come and talk about it and participate, and then hopefully participate on their own moving forward. Here are all the collection sites in Scarborough that they have right now. So for every one of these, if you're on the website, you can click on it and see pictures that have been uploaded to the site. So for this coastal meetup, we chose the Eastern Trail, so it's right there. The Pine Point Road. We figured that would be a good spot for a bunch of people to be. You can see the marsh and how flooding and high tides affect the marsh, which people in Scarborough care about a lot. So we thought that that would be very interesting. We'll first meet up in the parking lot area, kind of get oriented. I'll reintroduce the project to people and show people how to collect data. And then we will hopefully start documenting at 2 p.m., which is when the high tide will be doing it. And all you need to participate is a phone camera and some hoodie and waterproof shoes. People at the Eastern Trail Alliance made a very strong suggestion that people come in appropriate footwear that will likely be flooded, and then weather appropriate clothes. So whatever that means.
The trail itself will be flooded, but
She told me, I'm just relaying what was in the email. That's what she said.
Is this like a high, like a?
Astronomical high
yeah,
tide.
Yeah.
it's one of the highest tides of
Is
the
it-
month.
Typically, it's over 10 feet, you know, typically.
It won't be above the trail, but I mean, it'll be noticeably high. So when I didn't bring my tide chart with me, but
10.4.
is it 10.4? So it's on the higher end. I mean, we've had a lot of tides this year that are above 11 feet, so it's not like the highest you'll see. And obviously during the January and March storms, it was much higher
So
than that.
hopefully there's not a ton of rain. August 20 and 21.
Yeah.
I feel like that might be sort of what she was getting at, if it's weather or anything like that, but also just come prepared.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean-
I don't want that liability for anyone getting hurt. Yeah. So that's that. There will be information getting sent out, so we're asking people to register just to keep people in the loop. And there
In
will
case there
also
is a
be-
weather cancellation or
exactly.
anything like that.
And there will be a link in that information to register ahead of time, which is super helpful on the GMRF site. It takes, 1 minute. And you can also explore the page, which will also be linked, and just kind of see what people are uploading, what questions they're asked and answering, and just sort of what the project looks like practically. But yeah, I hope to see you guys there if you're interested in a very flooded for half
Yeah.
Marsh.
So getting
Or just
getting
take a
everyone.
little walk.
Getting everyone participating trained so that hopefully in the future, they will want to continue their foray into citizen science, and take more photos either from the spot where we are that day or other, spots around Scarborough.
And it's helpful too, because I feel like a lot of people, when, you know, the January storms hit, were taking photos. And if people feel like they want their photos to be used for something or just seen by people doing research or, you know, people who can help identify vulnerabilities in their community, this is a great way to just kind of feel like your photos are contributing to something in a reasonable way.
Yeah, and you can
Um,
submit past photos also
yeah,
too,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
like if people do have photos of the storm flooding from earlier this year.
Yeah.
They can be uploaded. Also, it doesn't have to be real time.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you'll send this link information directly to our mailing list. so
Yes, I
that
will.
we don't
Yeah, so
Something it down.
it's gonna go in the e-newsletter, so it should go out in the August 1st e-newsletter. And also the August 15th e-newsletter. There's a post on the town website. There will be information on social media. Things like that. And then also somewhat related to this, but separate. The town now has its own tide gauge for the Scarborough River at the Pine Point Co-op. So that'll give us real time tide information. It was just installed in June at the co-op here. And so that's actually it'll be a good addition to the work that we're doing as part of the art vulnerability assessment. Having some very local tide data because a lot of our tide information is actually based in Portland. And so there is some discrepancy, and especially as we move farther into the marsh, high tide, there's a lag between, you know, what our tide charts say is high tide and when high tide actually reaches,
Yeah.
areas of the marsh. Sorry, that's an aside.
Okay. Well, just my point was please send that directly to us.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
That'd be fine.
Yeah, and if you want, I can send a calendar invitation also. So if you guys use electronic calendars, I can get that in there and you can either,
I would appreciate that.
yeah.
This tide recording mechanism is it's electronic or how does it work?
Yeah, it's electronic and the data is eventually going to be hosted through GMRI. Right now, it's hosted through the company that kind of deploys these tide gauges. It's called Hohonu. And so as opposed to kind of like the NOAA tide gauges, which are in certain locations and publicly accessible, Hohonu is basically offering tide gauges on a private basis so that if you're not near a NOAA tide gauge or you want more localized information, you can work with them to have a gauge put in your community. And so the Gulf of Maine Research Institute is working on putting these gauges in communities throughout Maine, especially as they're working on sea level rise projects and studies and things like that. And so we were the lucky beneficiary of one down at Pine Point. So right now the data is live and available on the Hohonu website. And like I said, Gulf of Maine Research Institute is working on kind of a localized dashboard on their website that will have information for all of the tide gauges that they're deploying in Maine.
It's very cool.
Although it's shocking that we haven't had this. Like, I'm excited that we're getting this data.
Yeah.
I'm
I wonder if
shocking.
the clam bake has a high water mark that they keep establishing because that restaurant it's going high. I guess it was up to the windows at this point, the last.
I think it's at the salad bar.
Well, good, the water chestnuts will grow.
When the lettuce is floating away, you know it's high.
Is that it?
That is it. unless you
Well,
guys
thanks
have
for
any-
that information and
Yeah.
I
Tell
think
your,
that's,
tell your friends, your family.
I will, I'll
Your
put
fellow-
on my update for my town council stuff as well.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
No problem. Is there any signage or any kind of placard there, Emerson, or is it just?
We,
General
I don't know
scope.
what's there right now, but we did get signs made by GMRI for all 9 of the monitoring sites that introduce the project and talk about coastal flooding a little bit. So I'll
They've not
be
been
working
installed
on
yet.
getting those installed and hopefully it will be up at the Eastern Trail I'll just bring it. And
Okay.
I'll-
Perfect.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think we literally got them last week or the week
Yeah.
before, so, working on getting those, the ones that are gonna go on town property, we can hopefully get up pretty easily. Others, like the ones on Eastern Trail, will need to be approved by Eastern Trail Alliance.
Sure.
All right.
And that probably requires 2 months of meetings.
It might.
The liaison to the Eastern Trail Alliance, let me know if I can help.
All right, so next up, we have Sustainable Scarborough Day. So I am still delinquent in pulling together a committee meeting, but I do want to share that we have 24 vendors signed up for the event.
Oh.
3 food trucks confirmed, music confirmed, so things are still moving forward. I just have not had time to have a meeting yet. But coordination is happening. So, we're confirmed with Wentworth School. As a reminder, the date is October 6th. We will once again have, EV and e-bike test rides / drives. And so one difference from last year to this year is that all of the e-bikes and electric vehicles will be much closer to the main event of Sustainable Scarborough Day, rather than being separate at the library. So I think that will be a good improvement this year over last year. Rick suggested we have a discussion on the role of the Sustainability Committee at Sustainable Scarborough Day. And in the planning and coordination of the event, and then also have a discussion about what this group would like to see in terms of an activity. And I'm going to have to lean on you all pretty heavily to plan the Sustainability Committee's activity or table at the event, because there's just a lot going on this summer and fall. So we can have that discussion. We had talked about doing maybe like a cooking demo with, oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking. Thank you, induction cooktops, and things like that. So we can talk about that, or if there are other ideas.
You get a hold of revision on that tiny house?
Revision just committed to the event, this past week, so I need to touch base with them about the tiny house.
Okay, because they have one that I don't know if this group wants to have a role with using that in taking, I don't know, tours or discussions of the different things that a homeowner can do in their home. But I also like the idea of having a cooking demonstration on an induction stove. Be a nice introduction to that.
And that we could do with, I mean, you could do it with an induction cooktop, like a standalone.
Yeah, they make just like a hot plate that is an
Yeah.
induction.
That you
They're
could
very
do,
inexpensive.
that you could do outside, and you were able to get a donation from somebody last.
I did the
year.
heat pump water heater from FW Webb last year. I can get a hold of our friends at Agrin,
Agrin.
because they've dealt with putting my other hat on. They've dealt with it, so I have a contact there. I can see if
Just if there's something.
donation of
to
one,
do.
their cheapest model or something of that nature, and we can just use it as another way to get more people to sign up for the newsletter.
Yeah,
And even if it's just one of these standalone hot plate pieces that we purchase.
yeah, we
They're
could,
not that
we,
expensive.
we've been budgeted.
It is.
I can buy a couple of them that we can use to raffle off if there's not a donation from an entity.
I'll organize a chef.
Okay.
That would be a great idea. It would be good publicity too for a local restaurant.
Let's have that as our, like, let's focus on one thing. Let's not get too crazy.
Mhm.
So let's focus on induction cooking.
Right.
And if we have
Yeah.
a chef and something people.
How
can
long would
take-
this, how long would this, would this be, how long would this just be one demonstration? Would they have to be doing it all day long, or it's so fast, you can do it over and over? Yeah, I was just thinking for the chef's benefit, whether they would have to devote a whole day to it or just.
The whole
event
The whole event's only
It's
3
4
hours, 4
Uh,
hours.
4 hours, 10 to 2. I was gonna say 2.
Around lunchtime.
Yeah, you could do 2, and I'm wondering otherwise if we just do a demonstration of how quickly it boils water even. So, you know, you can have the set
That
Yeah.
could be continuous.
Yeah,
So have a couple of them. So we need to make sure that our booth is at a pellet supply.
yeah. Yeah, we can do that.
And maybe not in the wind. No, seriously, because it's gonna take longer to boil water if the wind's blowing, I'm sure.
Depends on whether or not you have a lid on.
Yeah, you always have a lid.
I know, but still, oh, I forget about it. Just saying, you know. Just saying.
I like the idea of having maybe a couple and doing that and not always cooking, but maybe periodically making and then putting it out for people to try it.
Well, and if you've got a couple of chefs that can do shifts, then you can just keep cooking all day.
I mean, I watched two oh
Then we'll
seven
need
and they
money
always
for
have a
some-
cooking
Yes.
on it.
So
and
then
it's
we'll need
fun to watch.
money also for some food that the chef could cook.
Yeah, yeah, I would say, we can work with the person to like reimburse or if they give us the grocery list, we can get the materials.
I
and
just
supplies
think
that they
from a
need.
publicity viewpoint for a restaurant, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, yeah.
They probably want to bring their own food.
And if they just, and my recommendation is if we have somebody who cooks all day, because that's a draw. And so when I say we should only do one activity, we should also have our handouts and things.
Right.
Prepared to discuss local initiatives
Agreed.
at the same time.
Well, and I'm wondering if
Like this.
Agrin, if they're not able to donate actual, like the hot plates, even doing like $25 gift cards or something that someone could then use to, we could raffle off and someone could go in and get one at a reduced cost because of the gift card and things like that.
And that would be an interesting thing to, I don't know if we talked to each of the vendors last year, but to actively ask them if they wanted to enter something in for the raffle.
Yeah, that's a good idea too, because I know.
do a general raffle or?
Well, the garden club, you guys
Yeah.
kind of, you did your raffle at the same time we did ours, so we can kind of coordinate. If
do more stuff.
you're gonna give away plants again.
Yeah, that was really,
It was really popular and your booth looked beautiful.
so maybe we'll start giving away all the,
Mhm,
and buy large.
mhm.
It's our 50th year.
Oh, that's exciting.
You should get a primo location.
Right.
Get it given away.
I know, you guys are right next door. That's here.
Not in the wind.
Did you get a commitment from Andy Meyer or anybody from?
Yes,
Okay.
Efficiency Maine, will be there. I'm really excited about, US Fish and Wildlife Service, so the Rachel Carson, Wildlife Refuge. They're coming with information about pollinators and they've got, I guess, like a pollinator trailer. And they've got pollinator like costumes so that they can do like a photo booth with kids. Their stuff was awesome last year. They just had the inflatable, archery set last year, which was a hit. And it sounds like this year's is gonna be equally fun and engaging, so that's pretty cool.
And so then the primary task is making sure the school will let us do the newsletter.
Yes. Yep, working on that. And if anyone has connections at the school department and wants to help put in a plug. That would
Any
be-
chance we could get a banner this year and because
Oh.
it's our second annual
Yeah,
and do a banner across 114 by the school.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That always had, when they have the
Visibility there.
Yeah.
Scarborough Day and
And don't say second annual, just say annual.
Right.
yeah,
Well, that's what we had said. There was some strategic discussion last
Right.
year about always doing it the first
first
Saturday.
Sunday in
Sunday.
October.
What about, I sent you some info about the,
You had a tiny house idea also.
that, but also I met, this woman, I think she's the chair of the Rotary.
Okay,
And they want to do a collection of computer goods and.
oh, like an e-waste collection?
Mhm.
Okay, I think I missed that, I'm sorry, so I'll go back and look.
Okay, I can send it again.
Okay,
Anyway, they were just looking for a site and they would advertise it and people, just reuse, reduce, recycle, blah, blah. They get money for all the stuff that's brought in, and people are always looking for ways to get rid of these.
yeah,
I know, my
Yes.
grandson went to a computer camp and it was all, they took apart computers and put it back together and then they got to keep the computer. But it was all computers donated.
well, that's cool.
And yeah, he just loved that camp.
But they were excited, I don't know if they still are, because some time has gone by, but a place to have it. And they
Yeah.
would bring tents and stuff, they'd collect, they'd leave everything nice and clean and.
Yeah, we
really
could-
Fits in with sustainability.
It really does. I imagine that we should be able to fit that in, also somewhere in proximity to, and even if maybe we work with the library. Collection at the library or something like that. But to have it all together, I think that that's a great idea.
Do we have a lawn care company that's gonna be a vendor that talks about fertilizers and that kind of stuff? Or-
So
Mowers.
the Soil and Water Conservation District has an education program about healthy lawn care, and that's what
Okay.
they're going to come and focus on. I know there are some companies, operating around here that offer that service, so we can,
I know there's one on Broad Turn Road.
yeah. So we
I
can
can't-
reach out and see if they want to participate.
Yes,
What was it?
Green Cares on Broadturn.
yeah, yeah,
Paul Bieber. is
right,
the
Paul. He was on the committee for his
School building,
school building.
most recently.
Okay.
He's the one who drives, oh, gosh.
Yeah, he
He's
drives the
one who
light-
Drives the E-truck.
Yeah, the F-150.
Oh, the lightning?
Yeah. He has it parked out in front of Green Cares.
He had one of the, he was very early adopter.
Yeah, very, and he has a couple of other, like it's part of his business model.
it is.
To convert his fleet to all.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, this is right up his alley. All right, I can give you his contact information.
Yeah, that would be great. We'll definitely send them some info. And so, yeah, so it sounds like there will be more trickling in. So Patrice, if you can fill out just the
Yeah, I
form
will.
for,
Yeah.
the garden club.
Yeah.
That's just how I get get confirmation, into kind of the spreadsheet that I'm working in. Awesome. Yeah, I forgot about the banner, so I'm glad you guys brought that up, because yeah, we were waiting to see how good the first one went before
Right,
we
right,
invested
before
in the
we
banner.
invested in the banner.
Yeah.
The second one is well on its way, so.
Yeah, and so you'll start seeing kind of regular advertising for it coming up in August. We'll start getting the word out about in the e-newsletter and on social media. The website is up and running on the town's webpage, or the webpage is up and running on the town's website. Emerson has done the flyer and a lot of the kind of graphic stuff for this year's. So it'll be a little bit different than last year's, trying to keep it fresh. So,
It's in the height of the political season. Is it also when all the lawn signs are in? Because we had also
Yeah.
talked a bit, so I don't think, having those things.
yeah, I probably won't do lawn signs this year. They'll get
Because of
lost.
all of
Yeah.
those, they get lost with all the political.
Yeah, the signs can stay in the closet this
Or get
year.
them twice as high.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I still put my no mow May, I kept it and
Awesome.
put that out. Boy, did my lawn look ugly. Oh, It was awful.
But thank you for doing your part.
But do you want a lawn?
Huh?
Do you want a lawn or do you want an environment?
Well, I prefer all moss, then I don't have to mow it.
Exactly, you just need some shade. Shade and moisture, you will grow moss.
Any other thoughts or ideas for the second annual?
Do we want to do anything again where we collect ideas from the public or
Oh, yeah, give, what
like
do you call
like
it?
a set
Give
of
us your
set
pennies
or
worth.
agenda, sort of a collection?
What was it? Useful engagement.
Yeah, it's so easy to. people to-
I think it wouldn't hurt to be.
Yeah.
Another 2 cents for sustainability.
Yeah.
Do you have topics that you want included or reuse the same ones or leave it a little more open-ended and people can write out their ideas? What are thoughts?
I think essentially what we did before.
Okay,
Yeah, I like the different categories so that,
There was another on there that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
add in that.
all right, we can do that. I still have last year's poster sitting in my office, so not that we will reuse that one, but
It's a template.
yeah, I can just print another one. I like things that I can just reuse from year to year, so fantastic. All right, let me write that down.
Jamie, one thing came up under old business that I didn't think of at the beginning or when we were developing the agenda. This committee had a discussion last meeting about the procurement of electricity.
Yep.
Was wondering how that process went internally.
Yeah, the contracts were signed, and so, I got an email last week that one of our accounts was kicked back, and that was just because it had changed, so we got that worked out, but,
Did we get the green option?
yes.
Okay,
Oh, yeah,
so-
yeah, yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
they did go the fully certified green.
Okay,
Yes,
so I
that was
wanted the
approved
committee
through
to-
Council too. So,
Was that a unanimous decision?
yes,
Really?
Tom presented it and asked for a motion.
Wow, that went
Right
unanimous.
through.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nice. Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Are we all set with sustainable Scarborough? I think it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I think it'll be good.
Hope for good weather.
Yes, yeah, last year we were so spoiled, so let's hope it happens again. It has been my experience in the past when I have organized in my previous job, really big events. The first year, the weather was beautiful and every other year after that it rained. So I'm
Oh,
hoping
no.
that that is not the case with this event. And if it is, we do have an option to move it inside. So there is a plan B, but it won't be nearly as fun if we are inside and not outside on a beautiful autumn day.
Is the
Fingers crossed.
Taser bus coming?
They have not responded yet, and I'm gonna reach out to them directly
That was
because
so hot.
that was so popular. And I also found there's another bus based out of Biddeford that is kind of an ocean focused, but they do a similar thing. They'll do like sustainability activities and nature activities and things like that I have on my list as a possibility if Tinker Bus isn't available, but I'm definitely reaching out to Tinker Bus individually, because yeah, that was such a huge hit and great fun for the kids and they're local, they're right, Fiddlehead is right in Scarborough, so I really hope that they come again. A new organization that's coming is Me Powered Pastries. They're right on Route 1. And they're interested in doing a workshop for us about cooking to reduce food waste, which I thought was awesome. So follow up with them about a potential workshop idea, but they'll be there at least with a table and information and activities and stuff.
And workshops is another piece to like, nobody was inside.
Yeah.
which I understand, so we'll all do that.
Yeah.
Do we have a different idea of what we're to do? with workshops?
I don't have another idea of how or where to do that, just because we're limited in terms of access to, not necessarily access to electricity, but like I don't see a workshop, depending on how it's set up, being conducive to outside, unless it's like low tech, like I'm just
Well,
gonna
you're
stand.
still not gonna have a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I don't think we need to plan for something that somebody could deliver to 100.
Yeah, no, we had
Even
talked
if
about
it's
making the space a little bit more
dozen
intimate.
or something.
Yeah.
And that you might be able to set up where the archery was
Mhm.
last year.
Yeah,
Like in that corner, it's a little bit protected. It does like not open to the whole
Yeah.
noise. And if you were to put the speaker kind of in the corner.
Yep.
And gather a few people.
yeah, and I would say we would encourage people not to use any kind of PowerPoint or anything like that, but
Well,
to
but
be,
even with a big screen TV, they could do. It wouldn't be terrible if they
Yeah.
had some slides. And some of these topics are so much easier to discuss with
Yep.
a handful of slides.
Mhm.
That if we're able to generate a big screen TV and 10 chairs,
Mhm.
that a few people could stand behind it, I think that would be sufficient.
Yeah. I'll give that some thought. Thank you. Yeah, I know that we had lots of ideas for how to set it up differently so that it was, you know, a little bit more intimate if we are in the cafeteria, and how to kind of set the walls so that it wasn't as distracting if people needed to use the restrooms while presentations were happening and things like that. Yeah, it would definitely, it's one lesson learned from last year is keeping everything as close to the same location as possible is really helpful, so.
If needed, I'm willing to like take on some PR outreach.
Okay.
If that's helpful.
Mhm.
Like, I know, like just finding event roundups that I can submit info to.
Yep.
if that's taking something off of your plate.
Yeah, that would be great. And I can pull together kind of just the blurb and the basic
Yeah.
information, if that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Just to check that.
I did notice that the boards and committees letter went out,
Mhm.
and it had mentioned the Scarborough days in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So check your emails, it's probably in there.
My husband said he'll do the photography.
Oh, fantastic. That was really helpful.
He got it, even pictures in the Portland Press.
Yep. Yeah, I did have some reporters reaching out asking for photos and things like that. And I appreciate that he was asking parents as he was taking photos, if their photos the kids' pictures could be used. So we don't have an official release, but he was definitely getting permission beforehand. So that was great.
You tried last year to get Keith Carson, didn't you?
I did.
And he.
Never responded. Lydia was supposed to stalk him for it.
If I'm honest, I swear, if I see him from now until October next, I will go up and ask him. I won't let it not happen again. Just because we see each other at random playgrounds and stuff.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because our kids are swimming. So we-
Yeah, stalk him. That
Yeah.
was mean.
Yeah.
Opportunistic.
Yes.
Opportunistic stalking, not like, you know, premeditated, but yeah.
Did you find anybody that does, battery backup generators?
Oh, I haven't. Thank you for that reminder
And-
also.
The other reason for asking that is if like we're doing an induction thing,
Yeah.
if we had
A bank
a
of batteries.
backup battery
Yeah.
thing as opposed to long wires and so people could kind of relate to, hey.
What if we had a solar panel feeding the battery bank that would feed the induction stove?
Exactly.
Revision I know has a solar trailer, and then one of the other solar companies that
Sundog?
is coming has said that they would bring, their solar trailer also. So I'll check and see if they might be able to, if we can work that out so that we're, yeah, if we're.
That would be cool if we didn't
Great
have a
idea.
long extension cord running to the school.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Power the whole thing with renewable, but then we have to hope for a sunny day.
Well, that's why if we had the battery, the
Battery
bank of
back.
batteries, then,
That can charge.
Yeah,
Right, but the people, the solar guys can make sure.
yeah.
And
Revision
those
can
little
bring
ones, they don't draw a lot
solar wall,
anyway.
Power wall for us, maybe, a Tesla solar wall.
or have an EV backfeeding it.
That's true too.
Bring the light.
I mean, we do have, I
There it is.
don't even know how that works.
And EV6 has a plug. Like a Nissan EV6
Mhm.
has an outlet that you can use, like a regular 110 outlet that you can use to draw from the batteries to do things.
Huh.
I don't
Yeah, but you have to have
it.
the engine running, right?
It's not an engine.
No, it's an EV.
Oh, it's all, so that's the reverse. Okay, that's what I was talking about, feeding it.
That's the only market car that has an.
The ability to back.
The integrated ability to do that. There are aftermarket options for some of the others.
Well, the
But this-
Lightning does also.
Yeah.
Oh, the
I
Lightning.
thought the Lightning
Because
did
I
too,
was thinking
because
maybe Green Care will bring his truck and we can park next to him and his.
Okay.
I have the email started to remind myself. to
that would be
do-
real, that would be a really
Yeah,
nice
and
little.
So that would
and
actually
Jamie.
even be better. I like that even better than a solar wall.
Yeah, because
'Cause I'm loving that.
it's
I mean,
dual
not-
purpose.
Yeah, and it's not yet ready for all of us.
But
for
just
prime
to
time.
confirm, we have no town vehicles.
We, no, all of the town's EVs are older, so. Yeah, I mean, I could look into kind of the aftermarket thing, but it would be
No,
just for
no,
this
don't
event
do
that we
it.
would.
Don't do
say.
that.
Don't do that,
That's, it's not a good plan. I've looked
Yeah.
into it. It's not a good idea.
Then we probably should have some sort of big poster or something laying how all that was integrated. Because it's hard to see it from,
Yeah,
visually, it's there, but then what does that look like? in
yeah,
a
once
schematic
we
form?
have a plan and know what we're doing, we can work on kind of some signage and information.
And we have, and we have.
Oh, yeah, Emerson could probably help with that. She does great with layout and design stuff, so as long as we know before the end of September what the plan is.
We already ordered it. She should be wrapped up.
Oh, are you done in September? Oh, yeah, you go back, right?
September 27th. I am not in school anymore.
You're not in school, you
Yeah.
graduated. This is,
But yeah,
what's your
hopefully,
future look like? Do you,
good question. Hoping to still be in Maine come October, because my lease also runs on September 31st or whatever. But I will make sure I am so that I can come to the Sustainable Scarborough Day.
Scarborough Day.
awesome.
What about something like Lowe's or some company that does solar lawnmowers and solar, electric?
Yeah, I don't know if our local hardware stores offer, like electric.
Ace has the
Yeah.
whole line.
They all have
They do?
egos and
Yeah.
whatever.
Oh, that's Johnson, right? The owner of, yeah.
So yeah, Lowe's and.
I bet he could bring a couple of his.
It'd be better
Oh,
to
yeah,
it's it's a great company, hard to see them.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'd rather do it with a local vendor than a big
And-
box
Yeah,
store.
And they might be willing to donate one of the smaller items as.
Yeah, like a.
Like a weed
leaf
whacker
blower
or something
weed
like that.
whacker.
Yeah.
We love our electric leaf blower.
Want one.
I use it up at camp all the time.
Yeah,
It's so
exactly.
easy.
So many pine needles. it
Pine
just
needles, it
leaves
just
them all up.
goes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
I'll go talk to them.
Oh, thank you.
I have, the manager is the son of one of the garden club,
Oh, great.
very nice person, he has a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we would love for them to set up a table and, have some stuff on display or demos, even, yeah, just the leaf blowers that people can
Yeah.
try out and stuff like that. That's easy enough. No
You
risk
can
of
bring-
That
damage.
season, so.
Yeah, exactly.
I needles from camp.
Yeah.
Rolling around.
Well, we will be, as Lydia just said, entering into, fall foliage and leaf cleanup, so people will be thinking about that. That's great.
Wow, lots of good ideas.
Yeah.
I'm
y'all-
glad we brought this
Now
up.
you don't need to.
I don't.
You need any more ideas?
No, and thank you all, for volunteering to help with some of these tasks. That's super helpful.
Well, this will be exciting.
Yeah, I think it'll be great.
Should we move on to new business?
Mhm.
When Jamie proposed, the agenda and we went back and forth, she had added, you recall last month we didn't meet and one of the catalysts of that was because I was not available to be at the meeting and we didn't have a whole lot. And I'm sure it stimulated the thought we should have a vice chair, and so she put that on the agenda, and then I said, well, why don't we do both officers, just to keep it on cycle. And so the agenda item is to nominate and vote for a chair and vice chair of the Sustainability Committee. I've been chair now for a number of years and have always appreciated my role with that, but I also don't want to be just assumed that I'm the chair. I want other folks, if they so desire. So I'm throwing it out. We'd like to have nominations for both the chair and the vice chair. And happy to take those nominations now.
I'll do a nomination.
Anton, you have the floor.
I nominate Rick as chair and Deb as vice chair.
I second that.
All right, we have a motion to nominate a chair and vice chair. And is there any other floor nominations?
I'm willing to do that, but if there's somebody else that would like to step.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
My nomination is not in vain. You don't have the option.
I read Robert's rules of order.
That's not the way it works. You have no choice.
All right, let's not get out of control here. We were flowing pretty good there.
I'll move to close now. We have a second.
Well, we gotta finish with the first motion, but you can,
No. a motion
you can
to close.
add to that.
Yeah, and we have a second.
Okay, so now the nominations have closed and now it's time to,
Vote on the close.
all right.
They have read Robert's rules of order. It's not-
I guess I don't, I guess I had to reread them. All right, we're closing, all in favor of closing the nomination, raise your hand in affirmation? Anyone opposed? For the record, Deb, opposed with a bright red face. All right, now we'll go back to the motion of the voting of that motion to close the nomination. So the nomination are Rick Monking as chair and Deb McKenna as vice chair. And so I vote for Deb.
Right,
All
unanimous.
right, so that's now just part of the formality of a committee.
And
Thank
then
you for that.
Do we do this again, or just, we'll do this again if it goes to us, or?
Probably annually.
Or something.
And
One thing's like a lot.
I thought these things are good for about 10 or 15.
So it's good for the, it's good for the fiscal year, I guess.
Annual.
Or like the Supreme Court, you guys, once you're in, you're in.
Then you die.
Life tenure,
We quit.
life tenure till death do us part.
I tried to.
All right, now we can take some updates. First one is on the town council.
Are you going to talk about vulnerability assessment?
If you, it's on there and we can talk about it now if you want to start in and I can.
That's fine. I see that now. Item 5, I'm gonna leave that one to Jamie. Town council, the biggest thing is nomination papers are, open next Wednesday the first Wednesday in August. For town council seats, Jean Marie Katerina has, put herself on the ballot for county commissioner and she does not have an opponent. And so she has submitted her resignation, which was accepted by the council. So her seat is a 2-year seat. And then in addition to Jean Marie's seat, there are also 2 other 3-year terms that are up this year. Dawn Hamill's seat as well as Nick McGee's seat are up. And so if you know anyone interested in running for council, encourage them to take out nomination papers. I'm happy to talk to anybody about my experience on the council and encourage people to run. And I don't think I have anything.
Anything on,
Unless you guys have questions.
you're on the ordinance committee.
I am.
Anything going on there that we should
So
have on our radar?
our ordinance committee meeting for July was canceled. And then upcoming agenda items for ordinance committee, we're gonna be talking about short-term rentals. And developing a registration program for short-term rentals. And the other thing ordinance committee is gonna be discussing, and this was actually referred to the planning board first, is 1,000-foot setback for cultivation facilities for cannabis. So that we can try and
Is that large
determine.
scale or is that homeowner
It's,
scale?
it's large, it's commercial growers, and cultivators rather, and it's mostly because if you've been following along with our cannabis journey, we have some residential that abuts light industrial where it is permitted, and we've had some odor complaints, and so we're trying to figure out moving forward if we can still keep our zoning the same and allow for it in light industrial, but also introduce this idea of a setback, which maybe would give some relief to any residential neighborhood that abuts a light industrial zone. And so that's the kind of.
And that's
track that
namely,
we're on.
right now, that's the Pine Point.
So it's Pine Point, so Snow Canning Road, and then we also have a cultivation facility off from Pleasant Hill Road that abuts a neighborhood. It's the street that is around the pond where the little restaurant.
Oh, right.
So if you go Down
yeah, down that
that
street.
street through the woods, they abut the industrial.
Gotcha, yeah,
Through there, which is,
yeah.
I used to babysit down there when I was a kid and it's wild, so see how that industrial park has just in their backyards.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Planning board, the big one that we've been going back and forth with is the FedEx trucking depot at the former Beach Ridge Speedway. It's in the light industrial area, but it also abuts residential. And so you can see
The
there's
theme.
the sensitivity in that, and it's been back and forth with the planning board. And I'll speak just from my standpoint, not the board. We're trying our best to incorporate the good neighbor ordinance into this, because it is in the light industrial, it is a permitted use. And in some cases, the planning board's hands are really tied because it's in the ordinance, and that's our job, is to enforce the ordinances. But there is a good neighbor ordinance. And we're ensuring that we do our due diligence to provide, listening to those that wanna provide testimony and ensure that everything is taken into consideration before we approve the site plan for that. And it's not done yet. But again, there's certain things that tie our hands. We can't tell the owner of that land that you can't do that because it is a permitted use. So I think that's the biggest thing in front of the planning board. We're looking at Intermed's proposing a building in the Downs. So they're gonna move part of the operation to Scarborough, which I think is a plus for the townies, as there is a more local way to get healthcare. And so I think seems to make sense, but it'll have to follow the ordinances. Any questions? I mean, that's really big.
What is this good neighbor ordinance? What does that cover?
Well, I like to look at it as do no harm. So mitigating any harm that could be felt by abutters.
What about the traffic issue?
Well, that's part of it. There's some off-site mitigation measures that we're going back and forth, like the distance for a queuing of doing a left-hand turn from Holmes Road into that facility. There needs to be a queuing, so if there is two big trucks waiting, it's not gonna block traffic, those kind of things. Ensuring that the landscape is mature enough, or there's berms that raise the landscape so that it mitigates noise and serves as a better buffer.
You know, the intersection now at Holmes and Payne Road is getting to be pretty out of control sometimes with cars pulling into Costco and everything.
Well, that's the big queuing, and that's the big mitigation.
You've got trucks and everything else, you know.
It's certainly gonna have a traffic impact, there's no question. One of the things that needs to be known is that traffic is not permitted down to Rod Road. And that is the sensitivity, but folks need to know that the site plan will come with conditions that say there shall be no truck traffic down to Rod Road.
Are these gonna be big trucks or little trucks?
This is what they call I want to get it right, then. It's a fleet depot. It's meant to take cargo and put it in and transfer it to other trucks that would then, like, that truck is dedicated to go serve 2 Walmarts.
It's gonna be all tractor trailers?
It's going to be large freight, so it's freight, so it's coming in like from the airport and all of these things, and coming from the Portland terminal and into there. And there's lots of trucks that are dedicated destinations, and these packages go in those, and then they get delivered.
Did you ever get any insight into why that location was chosen by FedEx?
Well, because the current one that they're using is too small now. And so apparently they've done their work and said, all right, this amount of land will allow us to grow our operation. Again, the operation's probably increased because Amazon's increased in all of this kind of stuff. So you grow out of something, you go in where you have some growth capability. And it seems like from their point of view, this is a good
It just seems to me that, I'm not an expert, but it just seems to me that this flies in the face of the the philosophy of our long-term plan for Scarborough, where you wanted to keep rural characteristics of the town west of the Turnpike or Route 1. And you wanted to keep development more focused around this kind of essential core of Scarborough. It just seems like all of a sudden it's like an industrial activity that's being almost placed into a rural area.
Well, that's,
mean,
that's one of the
that's not-
drawbacks of having light industrial right next to a residential zone.
Well, it also has occurred, not that I'm all, but it also has occurred to me that it was zoned as light industrial in order to accommodate the racetrack, Beach Ridge. I'm not sure that when the zoning was originally laid out, that somebody sat down and said, oh, this is a great place for light industrial,
Way before my time.
Well, I don't know when the zoning was
Well,
established.
there's always a moving target with zoning. I mean, you can go and you can propose a use that's not permitted and you can go get an ordinance.
Oh, no, I certainly.
Contract zone changes happen, they should happen infrequently, but from time to time there needs to.
But that
And you can
racetrack goes
rezone
back to
the-
the 1930s,
You
Well,
can
that's starting
rezone
to
something
lose the
to
race.
pull it back. But
What's that?
you can rezone to, to make something that has been light industrial. Like to,
You could probably repurpose, you change that, but there's been,
yeah, but
You know,
not
I
before
suppose
it's
somebody
already
bought that and
been
said, I wanna turn it into an apartment complex. Well, then they would have to go for a zoning change, because multifamily is not permitted in light
But
industrial.
if that's the area that is otherwise rural, it could be rezoned as rural. But to do that after the sale,
Well, somebody after, I mean,
lawsuit city.
somebody bought it with the idea that it was light industrial, and that's what it
So
is,
That's unfortunate. but-
yeah.
Mr. Chair, can I have the floor for
Yeah.
another town council update?
You have the floor.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot. Another thing that I think is relevant to mention is that the council had a workshop to discuss the three initiatives that are being asked for to be referendum questions. And so the council has not approved these as ballot items yet, but they did all pass first reading, which is body cameras for our public safety department. The second referendum question is for a pumper truck, and the third referendum question is the $6 million land bond question. And so, as communications chair, we are going to be making a concerted effort to make sure that our residents have the information they need to make informed decisions on those three questions. Specifically, we're going to do a Councilor Corner Live on August 7th at 6:30 here at Council Chambers to discuss the land bond. And my hope is that preliminary outreach as communications and engagement chair is to get a sense of whether or not people are comfortable with that $6 million figure. Because the council wants to put out something that is being recommended to us by our committees, but also at the same time being sensitive to the needs and wants of our community. And so I would love people's feedback, and the Councilor Corner Live is a great opportunity to get that feedback. So I wanted to put in a plug for my own event.
Yeah, as you should.
Thank you.
All right, so any questions on the planning board? I will mention, since Conservation Commission is next, at last month's meeting, well, this month's, we were given the task of providing an advisory on the Anjon's restaurant. And they want to reopen that. It's been out, and so it has to go through a process. And it's now in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals. But it was interesting that the Conservation Commission provided the planning board with some insight into the effects of the wastewater that happens at the restaurant. And so it came to the planning board, and it left the planning board with certain contingencies that we recommend, such as providing an inspection report of the wastewater system with a passing inspection. That was one of the conditions, so it's in front of the zoning board of appeals at this point. But with the Conservation Commission's input, it was very helpful and provided some leverage for the planning board to make some recommendations, as an advisory to the zoning board. So we'll see how that comes out, but it just brings me to the point where it's sometimes having committees provide input really help in making, decisions. So we should always, as a sustainability committee, be on the lookout for things that are in our purview, so to speak, and be able to say, do we want to make any comments before this goes? Like, for example, an ordinance is being proposed through the ordinance committee. If that's something that we feel, and Jamie's very good at keeping us in the loop on things, but we should be able and feel free to provide our input that could be helpful for decision making. So just throwing that out as a, that was really nice to have that. And I applaud the Conservation Commission taking the time and doing a substantive report for us. Okay, going on to Conservation Commission.
Conservation Commission, so, thank you for providing that summary, I don't have to.
Oh, was that-
No,
I'm sorry.
I wasn't actually gonna focus on that at all, but the commission, it has proposed, I mentioned this a couple times, environmental standards, so updating ordinances to increase setbacks and buffers from natural resources to help minimize the impact of development on our natural resources. So there was a forum hosted by SEDCO for developers to review and provide some feedback on the proposed standards that the commission has come up with. And it was not well received, as can be expected. Councilor Katarina and Anderson both attended that forum and suggested a roundtable with commission members and developers or their representative engineers to kind of start a dialogue around this and try to find some common ground and some compromise. And so that meeting has been scheduled for the end of August so that hopefully we can continue those discussions and move that process forward a bit, especially since all of the town's designated growth areas are in sensitive watersheds or impaired watersheds. So it's a conundrum. How are we going to improve our resources when we keep developing in the watershed? So that conversation will be continued. The hope is to have it back before the ordinance committee in September. We'll see if we're ready for that after that initial meeting in August. Dialogue. We'll see how it goes. Transportation committee, they're continuing to work on the townwide transportation study, working on revising a draft. And I know that they did not meet this month, so that's about all I have for an update, unless Autumn is still here. If there's anything you want to share. Oh, the council did approve impact fees.
Oh, good.
Transportation impact fees. So that is our fees that the developers have to pay to help mitigate some of their impacts that their development will have on traffic. And so staff were proposing a 50-50 split for kind of the projects that would be funded through the fees in order to address traffic issues. And the council approved 60-40. So the developer will pay 40% of the project, and the town comes up with the remaining 60%.
Jamie, do you sit in on the transportation committee meetings? Are you?
I don't know. It's Angela and Autumn that are primarily there.
I was just wondering how the actions of the transportation committee read down to the development of ordinances and volume on roads and whatnot. Does anybody have any visibility into that? I mean,
I'm gonna move this over because Autumn just unmuted. So Autumn, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I guess, I'm not sure I understand the question. Is the transportation committee works similarly to other groups? So if they have proposals or ideas, but our focus for the last several months has been on this townwide transportation plan. And then once that gets accepted by council, then that will inform, I'm assuming many ordinance amendments, possibly. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
He's reluctantly nodding.
I know.
But when a development is being proposed or a site plan is being, a use, there's certain things that trigger what they call a traffic permit. And a traffic study is done to determine what impacts are made, and the developer has to pay certain fees that go in so that those impacts can be mitigated as the funding comes and the town can afford it.
So the Downs, for example, they have a traffic movement permit with Maine DOT. And it basically allows them to have a certain number of daily trips to their site. And once they hit that number of daily trips, they need, and if they are planning to continue development, they need to get another traffic movement permit.
They have a scorecard, so they're keeping track of, as soon as they hit that number, they have to say, oh, now we have to go and get another traffic movement. And that may mean more off-site mitigations will be necessary in order to continue the development.
Right, so part of that permit is they will need to implement off-site improvements like Rick was saying. So for example, in North Scarborough, there is an effort to put the adaptive traffic signals out there as well. That is a result of the Downs development, and they are paying for that project to happen.
I guess I was wondering whether activity, decisions or conversations that happen in the transportation committee finally find life in an ordinance of some sort. Because just listening to Rick and others and my experience too, it's the ordinances drive everything. If you don't have the ordinance, you have no ammunition for the planning board. So.
And you want to make it cut and dry.
Because just as an example of what we were talking about earlier about the development there at Beach Ridge. I mean, it is going to produce X amount more of big truck traffic on Holmes Road. I mean, is there would there be an ordinance that somehow would discuss that you could say, well,
Oh, there is, yeah, and that's why they're having to do other off-site work in order for it to be approved. So that we know that the traffic is, the least impact to the traffic will be made if they do X, Y, and Z.
And just not the traffic, just the quality of the road, because when you run
Wear and
heavy
tear.
trucks back and forth on Holmes, you break it up and that costs more money to the town too.
And I think to your point, all of those things go through the planning board and our existing ordinances. The transportation committee is focused more right now on head and bike. And so if ordinances come up, they would be geared around those items probably. We have an
Complete
ordinance
streets.
going
Connectivity.
through right now that, so sidewalks are required. They're not suggested anymore. So things like that, but their focus really has been on this long-term plan for several months.
That was the work that was done on Route 1 as you come into the Downs, and now you can actually, with the adapted lighting, you can now cross and pick up and then end up going to the Eastern Trail from the Downs with a bike, means of a bikeway, a safe bike. Although one would question if it's safe to be on Route 1 period, but at least there's a fairly decent shoulder on.
Incremental improvement.
Yes, it doesn't happen overnight.
Spurwink is beautiful. It's very possible to do that. It's just not yet possible to get from my house to Spurwink to use that.
But yeah, I mean, you can see where these things are happening. And what's been going on with the Downs is a 5-year mitigation plan that I think this is either year 2 or year 3 on that. So they're continuing to do what they need to do in order to satisfy their current traffic movement plan. I think that's all the updates, except for the last one.
Yeah, so open space and vulnerability. So I'll start with open space. So we have our open space workshop tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock at Public Safety. So that is kind of the big public engagement opportunity for people to give us their feedback and priorities as we're talking about land conservation and open space conservation and things like that. So I have shared with you all a couple of times that that's coming, and it's been publicized in a number of different ways. So looking at how the goal of the open space plan is basically to increase the amount of open space that we have in town as development continues to boom in Scarborough. And give us strategies for achieving 30 by 30 and strategies for funding open space conservation. The land bond is an important tool as part of that. And then thinking about where our land conservation priorities should be. So what are the elements that are going to be important as we think as opportunities to conserve land come about? Is it wildlife habitat, clean water, thinking about sea level rise, preserving our farms and forests and things like that. And so the workshop tomorrow night will be allowing the public to weigh in on those elements and also provide feedback to the planning team, looking at a bunch of maps that's showing all of these different resource categories and elements so that we know that the maps are accurate. People have great local knowledge to provide some feedback on kind of the data that our consultants have access to make sure that that's accurate and we're not missing anything. And then literally people will be telling us where investments should be made. So that everybody is going to be given $200,000 and they get to choose how that $200,000 is distributed across 6 different resource categories as a way of telling us what is important to them when it comes to open space.
You only get 2 cents for sustainability, but that's $200,000.
2 totally different activities. It's okay. It's okay.
Vice chair.
That's an interesting way to do it. That's kind of a very innovative way of trying to set priorities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And so
I like that.
our consulting team is actually going to provide the workshop participants feedback at the end of the meeting. So like in real time, we'll see how everybody has kind of decided how to spend their $200,000. And so we're also doing other engagements. So we've been at 2 concerts in the park this summer, and we've got one more planned to give people another opportunity to weigh in similarly on how they value the land conservation and what we should be thinking about when we're thinking about land conservation. There is also an online option. So people who aren't able to join us in person, there is a website linked from the town's webpage where people can do this interactive activity online if they're not able to join us in person. Also hoping to be at Summerfest and
Farmers Market on August 11th.
and at the farmers market to talk about open space and get people engaged with the planning process. So the goal for that one is to have it wrapped up early 2025. So we're having our big community workshop tomorrow, and then the plan will be presented at a town council workshop, hopefully in January or February. And that'll kind of be the wrap up of that project. So it's going really well. It's a really interesting process in looking at kind of all of the resources that Scarborough has. We're really our consultants will generate basically a heat map showing where kind of how the town's priorities align with or help us identify areas of town that should be considered for conservation if we have willing landowners to work with the town and the land trust. And that'll be displayed as kind of like a heat map. So really dark areas will be areas where a lot of the town's priorities overlap and where there are opportunities to conserve there. And then lighter shades will be where there's, fewer of the priorities that the town has identified, but still important areas. So,
But yeah, don't we need like everything that's not developed to get to 30%?
we actually don't. So that number is being refined, continues to be refined. And we need to kind of look dig in a little bit more, in terms of, what's permanently protected, or if there's opportunities where there's existing open space that isn't permanently protected. That'll be a kind of a low hanging fruit that, that we can help us get to our 30 by 30, but right now it's looking like we need, 6% more land, so like 1,500 acres or so to hit 30 by 30. So that may, so that's like with our existing open space that may not be currently protected, but we could take steps to protect it, to ensure that it remains that way. So, yeah, so that's, another piece of the puzzle that the open space, ad hoc committee, and our planning consultants are helping us determine. But yeah, it's looking better than, it had, initially when we first started this process, and they just have more time, experience, and access to data to be able to kind of dive in and look at kind of what our baseline is, where things stand right now. Yeah.
And that's is for the town.
Yeah. And then vulnerability assessment, we have a public meeting scheduled for our vulnerability assessment on August 12th. And so the vulnerability assessment is looking at the areas in town and infrastructure that is at risk from flooding. So that was very visible this winter, in our storms. So it's basically letting us know what's vulnerable now and what's likely to become vulnerable in the future based on, sea level rise, predictions and storm predictions and things like that. And so working through, kind of the process of, understanding, predicting the climate and weather patterns over the next 100 years or so, and thinking about where, identifying our current vulnerabilities and thinking about what's going to become vulnerable and helping us develop a plan for how to address, those vulnerabilities. So our consultants are going to be doing some field work, this summer and fall, looking at our, sewer pump stations. Those tend to be very vulnerable, to flooding. And we did have some offline during the January storms. So, and had one down at Higgins Beach had significant damage. So hoping that we can, get a little bit more information about, that infrastructure so that we might be able to be a little bit more proactive and work on elevating kind of electrical components and things like that, so that, we won't have those issues in the future, fingers crossed. And then also looking at roads, culverts, our stormwater systems, and things like that. So, the initial public meeting, to introduce the project, provide information about the process and ways to provide, input and feedback is, on August 12th, like I mentioned, and then we're doing neighborhood meetings, at Higgins Beach and Pine Point. And those have been scheduled as of this week. So Higgins Beach will be, meeting with that community on September 5th. And, Pine Point will be, September 24th. So providing those communities an opportunity, firsthand to discuss the vulnerability assessment. That one is expected to take about a year. So we're looking at wrapping it up about a year from now. That's why I'm so busy.
Quite a lot on the plate.
That's true.
Well, can you imagine the day when we didn't have a Jamie?
I can.
We wouldn't be where we are today. We really would.
Imagine, I can run that.
Wow. That.
There will be no days without Jamie.
Well, there was a time that we didn't have Jamie. This town has benefited immensely.
Oh, and I do want to mention, just going back to the open space workshop tomorrow, we do have kids activities planned. So if childcare is a barrier for anyone to participate, we'll be keeping your kids busy while the workshop is happening, if people want to come and bring their kids.
See?
Done.
Wow. Lots of good things going on. I think we should be proud to be part of that. The whole equation. Thank you for the updates.
Yeah.
Our next meeting is scheduled for August 28th. Anybody have any particular agenda item they want to have on it? If not, Jamie and I'll put together another agenda and keep things moving. That's the next meeting.
Thank you.
And motion to adjourn, maybe? what time? Oh my gosh, 5 minutes early. I like it. All right, thank
Thank
you
you all.
everyone for